in between the lines where nothing is out of bounds, as adversity is an opportunity to overcome and adjust. Myself, Savon Williams, and my brother Joe Hamilton here. Joe, Pittsburgh said enough is enough. Mike Tom, or maybe the other way around, but Mike Tomlin is no longer the head coach. And it's been how long? 18 years?
19
19
seasons.
years.
Yep.
What's your thoughts on the end of an era?
Um, I like the way it ended. I really do. I like the way it ended because um, Pittsburgh and the Rooney family didn't see this coming. Per them in their report, per them in their statement they made to the media and gave out. So I'm going to believe that. I'm not really, we don't really know, Vaughn. Nobody really knows unless you're a fly on the wall or you're an executive for the Pittsburgh Steelers or you are Mike Tomlin's agent or his significant person he wanted to be in that meeting when he talked to ownership. Nobody really knows what the discussion was about. Um, but it came out of that meeting, and everybody we talked to on the Pittsburgh side said they were shocked. They had no idea. Mike Tomlin came in about 5:30 on Tuesday morning, as he usually does. They had a team meeting at 2 o'clock, like they do all the time after a game, and he announced it. But what I will say is this to you, Vaughn. Mike Tomlin didn't come and make that decision right after the game. It wasn't knee jerk. It wasn't that he took less than 24 hours because today's Wednesday. But I mean, less than 24 hours or right at 24 hours, no, definitely less than 24 hours after he played or his team played a Monday night football game, he made a decision to step down from a place that he was at in 19 years. Nobody can really tell me that that happened right away. Thought had to go into it. He brainstormed that, whether he talked to his wife beforehand, whether he talked to family and friends beforehand, but he was leaning some way or another. And I think that he said, or he had come to the conclusion as far as a high percentage, that when we lose or if we lose our last game, and the only way you don't lose your last game is you make it to the Super Bowl. But when our season is over, I think, or I'm feeling, or I'm leaning towards hanging my coaching or hanging my whistle up and not coaching anymore. So I would tell you this though, Vaughn. I think it's a win-win. I think it's a win-win for Mike Tomlin stepping down and resetting and resting after 19 seasons, being away from the game of football because that's a taxful job that's a job which is a lot of expectations, and some of it he calls on himself because how great he is, and it's another win for the organization because if Mike Tomlin were to get back into football right away or anytime soon, the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to get compensation for that. So it's not surprising because I think Pittsburgh, the fans started booing. A lot of people there in the organization or around the city and sports radio hosts started to, talk really bad about him and not appreciate the work that he put in. But I think everybody is feeling pretty good that nobody had to get fired. That's
Right.
my immediate thought. Nobody had to get fired. And when you look at it at the end of the day, when you read what the Rooney said about how outstanding of a leader he was, and how he just held up the banner for the Pittsburgh Steelers for 19 years, is a love situation. And I have you know this for our listeners, man, and it just blew my mind today when I read it, and I kind of knew it, but this is only the next coach would only be the fourth coach that the Pittsburgh Steelers has had since 1969. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin. And within those three coaches in how many 45 years, the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, they have never fired a coach. So they
Mm-hmm.
always get it right. So look for them to get it right on this hire right now, and look for them to be able to say that another 15 or 12 to 15 years or 15 to 20 years, when they get the next coach, he's going to come in and do the same thing.
That's a great point there. I mean, we talk about job security. What more security than you have? Could you possibly have than to show that the ones your predecessors, the ones before you, Cause I've been there at least a decade. So it's like that maybe, most people talk about what's the best head coaching job based on the talent that's on the
That's
team.
right.
But that can also come with a lot of pressure because if you don't perform and get a championship with that talent, especially with the microwave, we gotta have it now. They'll hire you today and fire you tomorrow if you ain't doing based on their expectations.
Right.
So to see, and this is with any, not even just with NFL and head coaching, even though that's what we talking about, but this is with any job in any industry. Job security in 2026 is a thing that's non-existent. So the
Mm.
fact that you just mentioned that for the Steelers and how they only gonna have four coaches in the illustrious uh, uh, organization or the history of
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh, it's like that's really amazing. And for anybody else, they should want that Pittsburgh Steelers job. But it comes with you got to be a
They
certain type
shouldn't or
of coach.
should.
They should, they should.
Yeah.
But it comes
And
with being a type of you got to be a Steeler guy. You can it can't. They don't like you said. They don't get it wrong. So my next question was gonna be: is it a rush? Because since they ain't made no mistakes at coaching, should they take their time? Should they, or you leave the decision completely up to the Rooney family because they
mm,
haven't got it wrong yet. So whatever they doing,
yeah.
keep doing what they doing.
Hands off. Hands off, Vaughn. There is no rush with that organization, and the fans should know that. And I'll tell you another piece of a nugget that I'm thinking about now with the Roonies and with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you think or if you have some names or ESPN or Fox Sports or the newspaper or anybody tell you, Vaughn, that they kind of have an inkling or they know who the Pittsburgh Steelers should hire, they're not going to hire that guy
Mm-hmm.
because Mike Tomlin, he hadn't heard or nobody heard of Mike Tomlin before he got hired. He had 1 year as a defensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings, and then they took a flyer on him at 34 years of age. Bill Cowher from Kansas City, coaching special teams and a position coach, right, at 34 years of age. Nobody was saying that's the hot candidate. They hired him. And then we all know, but Chuck Noll, we were really too young to know his background then. But
It's
they do
Terry
their
Bradshaw,
research.
coach.
Yes,
Yeah,
in 4 Super Bowls as
right.
well. So what they do is they do their research. They don't listen to anybody else. They like mature leaders of men, and they go out and they trust their hiring process. And we don't know. So if we think we know about the hot candidates, we can do that with out of the eight other vacancies. We can kind of assume, but that's one organization that history tells us that we can't assume who they're going after or what their criteria is for hiring another head coach. That's just the bottom line. And I would like to give kudos to Mike Tomlin with this. Vaughn, there are 9 coaching vacancies in the NFL right now. And 8 of those 9 vacancies, the former or the previous or the head coach that is not there anymore, that head coach got fired. Tomlin is the only one that stepped down. So you have 9 vacancies of the head coach we are talking about, and out of those 9 vacancies, one head coach got just stepped down, and 8 got fired. So that's a kudos to Mike Tomlin as well. No matter how it's done, that is what happened. And I'll give you another quick nugget, Vaughn, is how it's a mutual relationship. I don't know what happened in that meeting yesterday as far as whether the Roonies asked Tomlin to step down and it was that mutual or Tomlin went and say, I can't do it anymore. I don't know. But I do know that they came to some kind of agreement that Mike Tomlin is not going to get back into coaching this year. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I'm saying that is because if Mike Tomlin was to get back into coaching this year, that's a boatload of money. That's something that the Roonies would have to pay out, or that's something that, the other compensation for a coach or a trade, for instance, like Sean Payton. Sean Payton left New Orleans and he sat out a year and went to media. And when the Denver Broncos wanted to hire him, they had to call an actual permission from the Saints. The Saints had to give them permission to do that, and they got compensated for it. I don't think the Roonies, I don't think the Steelers going that route. I think Mike Tomlin gave them their word that he's not going to be in coaching at least 1 or 2 more years, and that when he does come back, nobody owes anybody anything. So this is a somewhat of a perfect situation of how everybody kind of injured it, and nobody's really upset.